Hey, this is Josh with Budget Mechanic. Today I want to talk to you about a really common suspension issue. I repair this all the time, and it's the sway bar link. And this sucker contributes to a lot of suspension noise, rattles, especially over rough road. And it's actually a pretty simple and cheap fix to do, but there can be some hang-ups and problems that will happen when you try to replace your own. And we're going to get into it today. But before we move on, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe and hit that bell. It really helps the channel out. So I've jacked up both of the front wheels on the car, which takes the pressure off the sway bar so that this is not under tension and you can pull it out easier. You can see this is the sway bar link right here, attaches to the shock and also the sway bar. And the way you can tell these are bad is I can easily move this by hand. This should be so stiff that it's almost impossible to move by hand. Also, I can see the rubber boot down here that's supposed to keep in the grease has split, so that causes the joint to go bad. And I believe this is what's causing all the rattling. So as you can see, it's a fairly straightforward repair, right? It's just two nuts, one on each end, and the part comes out and you put in the new one. The trouble comes when you try to go and take these nuts off of an old sway bar link. Oftentimes, the shaft itself will just spin. So you can't get the nut off because the shaft is spinning. You have to somehow hold it. And it can get a little difficult because this is a little bit tight, especially the lower end of it. But there's a couple things that you can look for. A lot of the aftermarket links come with a fitting in the end. So this one has like an Allen key or a hex fitting. I can see here on the one on the car there's a star fitting, and that would allow you to put a wrench on the shaft so that then you can get your wrench on your nut to turn it, break it loose. Oftentimes though, there isn't anything to hold, and what I find I often have to do is put vice grips on it. So vice grips just grab a hold of the back side of this, hold it in place while I break the nut free. And generally that's the fastest for me, probably 80–90% of the time that's what I just do anyway. I just throw vice grips on there and that frees me up to break the nut loose. The bummer is if you have to use like an Allen key, hex wrench, star nut, you can't get an impact on there. You have to use a wrench and do a turn by turn, which is a little annoying, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Sometimes even they'll put like slotted spots, flat spots on the shaft on the back side to allow you to get another wrench on there to hold it. Usually though, your wrenches don't fit in the space. They're not narrow enough, so I've never really been successful with that. Some parts will even have a protruding nut at the end of the shaft that will allow you to hold on to it. We did a video on a vehicle that had that style. You can check the link above. In worst case scenario, I've had some really bad ones that even with vice grips, the nut is rusted on. I cannot get it off. I've had to cut it with an angle grinder. So either cut the protruding threads off, or I've had to get on the backside and try to cut that off. It's really annoying, but worst case scenario, you can do it that way. So let's go ahead and try and remove these old sway bar links. So I'm going to start on the top. It's the easiest to reach and see. And you can see it's just turning. The shaft inside is just spinning with the nut, so it's never going to come off. Luckily on this one, I have a star Torx fitting on the end, so I could fit this in here so I can hold the inner shaft as I do the outer nut. If your sway bar link doesn't have that, which most of them don't, my go-to is the vice grip on the back side. Nice and tight, and what I'm doing, you can see on the new one, I'm grabbing this collar on the back. Now this generally will split the boot, it mangles it all up, but you're taking it off anyway, so it doesn't matter. That allows me to use something like this, like I can get a socket on it, hold onto the vice grips, and away I go. You can even get an impact on, which works really good, because that can help break loose sticky threads. So this one here has the flat spots on the collar. It's squared off to allow you to put a wrench on here, and that's a way you could hold it while you back the nut off. The thing is, it's on the back side, it's hidden. You can't see that they're there, And also, oftentimes your wrenches are too thick to fit in the space that they give you. So I find those pretty useless. Worst case scenario, if this stuff isn't working and I can't get this nut off without the shaft spinning, I could bring in a grinder. And basically I would be cutting right on the back side of this flange all the way through the shaft. And again, for reference, I would be cutting through this collard area. Pretty messy, lots of sparks flying. You want to be careful you're not cutting your shock, but I have had to do this a couple times. Moving on to the lower, and I'm not going to mess with Allen keys or anything. I'm just going to go straight to my old vice grips. Oh, this one's sticky. There we go. Usually the vice grips just fling around until they hit something and then can't move anymore. So you can kind of see how these are made. It's just ball in a socket, but the tolerances need to be really tight. And this one's all loose, probably from the boot splitting and water and dirt getting in there. So putting it in is much easier because you don't have to hold that shaft. So you pull the nuts off, and slot the bottom one in. Now because this is a nice fresh new link, it's really hard to move. There we go. The nut on the top. So because that joint is nice and stiff, I can just wrench on the nut and it won't spin. Obviously, if it does spin for some reason, you could use the same methods to hold the shaft. Other than the vice grips, I wouldn't use that because it can tear up the rubber. Now everything's just the same in reverse. Yeah. Okay, so the new one's in, and like I said before, because it's a new one, it's nice and stiff. I can't even wiggle it by hand, which is a good way that you can check your own sway bar links. Even with your tire on, you can reach back there. You shouldn't be able to move either way when it's new. So often the left and right side will wear out at the same time, and you might as well just do them both. But if one of them's stiff and nice, then leave it. Just save some money, do one. I think this is a great little budget fix, as long as you know these little tricks for getting your sway bar links off. Hey, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, and as always, please subscribe, leave a comment, and hit that alert bell. We'll see you next time.